Most business owners believe the biggest threat to their business is competition. They worry about losing customers. They worry about economic uncertainty. They worry about rising costs. And while those are real challenges, one of the biggest threats to a growing business is often much closer than they realize. Sometimes it's the founder. Not because the founder lacks vision, not because the founder isn't working hard, but because the business has become dependent on one person to keep everything moving. If every important decision has to go through you, if every customer problem lands on your desk, if every employee waits for your approval, if the business slows down every time you step away, then you've become more than the leader of the business. You've become its bottleneck. And over time, that bottleneck doesn't just create stress, it quietly destroys cash flow. At first, being involved in everything feels responsible. You built the company, you know the customers, you know the team, you know how things should be done. You tell yourself that it's faster if you handle it. It's easier if you approve it. It's safer if you make the decision. And in the early stages of a business, that's often true. When you're starting out, wearing multiple hats is part of the job. But what helped you build the business can eventually prevent it from growing. Growth changes everything. More customers create more questions. More employees require more guidance. More projects create more decisions. If every one of those decisions still depends on you, the business begins to slow down. Not because people aren't working, because they're waiting. Waiting for approvals, waiting for answers, waiting for direction, waiting for you. Those delays may seem small. A proposal waits 1 day. An invoice waits 2 days. A purchase order waits until next week. A customer issue waits because you're in meetings all afternoon. Individually, those delays don't seem significant, but together they create friction throughout the business. And friction is expensive. Think about how cash actually moves through a business. A customer requests a proposal. Someone prepares the proposal gets approved. The customer signs, the work begins. The project gets completed. The invoice is sent. The customer pays. Cash enters the business. Now imagine the founder sits in the middle of every one of those steps. Nothing moves without their approval. Every delay pushes the next step further away. The proposal goes out later. The project starts later. The invoice gets sent later. The payment arrives later. Suddenly, cash flow becomes inconsistent. Not because there weren't enough customers, not because the market changed, but because the business became dependent on one person. Many founders never connect these two ideas. They think they have a cash flow problem. In reality, they have a decision-making problem. Cash flow is often the result of what happens operationally long before the money reaches the bank account. If operations slow down, cash slows down. If communication breaks down, cash slows down. If approvals pile up, cash slows down. Everything inside the business eventually shows up in cash flow. I've seen founders who proudly say, "My team can't do anything without me." They believe it's a compliment, but it's actually a warning sign. Because if the business can't function without the founder, it doesn't really have a system. It has dependency, and dependency creates risk. Imagine you decide to take a 2-week vacation. What happens? Do sales continue? Do projects move forward? Do invoices still get sent? Do customers receive the same experience? Or does everyone wait until you return? That's one of the simplest tests of whether you've become the bottleneck. A healthy business should continue creating value even when the owner isn't in the room. That doesn't mean the owner becomes unnecessary. It means the business becomes stronger. Many founders also believe that nobody can perform at their level. Sometimes that's true. Nobody understands the business quite like the founder. Nobody has the same experience. Nobody cares as deeply. But that's not the point. The goal isn't to find someone exactly like you. The goal is to build systems that allow ordinary people to produce extraordinary results consistently. Systems reduce dependency. Processes reduce confusion. Clear expectations reduce delays. When people know what decisions they can make, they stop waiting. When responsibilities are clearly defined, execution speeds up. When workflows are documented, projects move faster. When projects move faster, invoices go out sooner. When invoices go out sooner, cash comes in sooner. Notice how improving operations eventually improves cash flow. That's why the strongest businesses don't simply chase more sales. They improve how work moves through the organization, because speed creates momentum, and momentum improves financial performance. Another hidden cost of founder dependency is decision fatigue. Every day you're making hundreds of choices. Should we hire this person? Should we approve this discount? Should we purchase this software? Should we respond to this customer differently? Should we change this process? Every decision consumes mental energy. Eventually, even smart people begin making slower decisions. Or worse, they avoid making decisions altogether. The business feels busy, but progress slows. Your calendar fills up, your inbox fills up, your task list grows longer. You work harder than ever, yet somehow, the business doesn't feel like it's moving faster. That's because activity isn't the same as progress. Many founders mistake being busy for being productive. But being involved in everything often prevents everyone else from contributing at their highest level. Great leaders don't create dependence. They create capability. They build teams that can think, managers who can decide, employees who understand expectations, processes that continue even when leadership is unavailable. That's where real scalability begins.
There's another reason this matters.
If you ever plan to sell your business, buyers pay attention to this. One of the first questions they ask is, what happens if the owner leaves? If the honest answer is, everything stops, the business immediately becomes less valuable. Not because revenue isn't good, not because customers aren't loyal, but because the business hasn't become independent of the founder. Businesses with strong systems command stronger valuations. Businesses that rely on one individual carry more risk, and risk always affects value. Whether you're planning to sell in 5 years or never plan to sell at all, building a business that operates without constant founder involvement makes the company healthier. It improves decision-making, it improves execution, it improves customer experience, and it improves cash flow.
So how do you know if you've become the bottleneck?
Ask yourself a few simple questions. Does my team constantly need my approval? Do customers expect to speak directly with me? Can invoices go out without me? Can projects move forward without me? Can the business operate for 30 days if I'm unavailable? If the answer to most of those questions is no, you've identified one of the biggest opportunities inside your business. The solution isn't working longer hours. It isn't hiring more people just to create more dependency. It's building systems, creating clarity, delegating responsibility, defining expectations, removing unnecessary approvals, teaching people how to think instead of telling them what to do. Because every bottleneck you remove allows the business to move faster, and every improvement in execution eventually shows up somewhere every business owner cares about: cash flow. The businesses that create consistent cash flow aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest sales. They're the ones where work flows smoothly, decisions happen quickly, teams operate confidently, customers receive consistent service, and the founder is no longer standing in the middle of every process. The goal isn't to make yourself less important. The goal is to make the business less dependent on you. Because when your business can succeed without your constant involvement, you've built something far more valuable than a company that simply needs you every day. You've built a business that can truly grow.